We are live and direct from my office in Maui, and we're gonna let this be the best workshop yet. Feeling silly and ridiculous as usual, but also feeling pretty excited about what I'm about to share with you today. I'm gonna let people come on because I know that there were a couple of people that wanted to come today, and hopefully a whole bunch of you will be also watching the replay as well, and there will be plenty of things to do for you after that. There will be plenty of ways to comment and stuff after, even if you're just watching the replay. So we're gonna have some fun today. Hey Tom, how you doing? As you're coming in, let me know how your day is. Anything cool that happened to you this week or not cool? You know, there's lots of both happening in the world. Good. My week has been interesting. I've been doing sound design for a play down here, like just down the road from my house. There's a little theater called Pro Arts, and it's a 2-person play, but there's quite a lot of like sound effects. So I've been finding text chimes and door buzzers and all kinds of fun stuff, and then also there's some projections that are involved as well. So I've been a techie person for this week, and it's been really interesting. Lots coming together in very short amounts of time in the tech week of the theater world. If you know about that. So that's been in my world. Let me know what you got going on this week. Anything exciting? So I'm going to write a couple of things on my whiteboard here just to get started. I know some of you may have seen me post about this before, but as we're talking about space in the body and also accuracy, I wanted to talk about our tendencies as a singer. And it really makes a difference what your tendencies are so that you can start to notice them and really pay attention to what your work is as a singer, because it's different for everybody. It's not like everybody has all the same issues that they're dealing with all the time. It's going to look very different based on how you have learned to sing, how to use your voice, and how you have learned to kind of just be a person in the world. So this might be very interesting for you on multiple levels. I'm trying to make my handwriting not terrible. Cool. All right. So I think we can just get started. People will trickle in as they can. Hey Grace, how you doing? Let me know in the chat how you're doing today and what any exciting things that have happened to you this week, for you, with you, because of you, all the things. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to start off with was kind of this idea that there are different types of people who approach singing in different ways. And so when we think about how you start singing, sometimes we come at it from a very tight, like just strained kind of a way. Like you just try so hard. And that's totally how I have approached singing in the past. And I've been working very hard to dismantle that. But there's 3 types of singers that I have discovered in my travels as a voice coach, and that is these 3. Hopefully you can see this. There we go. A little better. Playing Tetris with everything. Okay. So that's backwards. I always forget it's gonna be backwards, man. So this is a perfectionist. And I gotta learn how to write backwards, I guess, or learn how to switch my camera around. I don't know if that's possible on here. Oh, I can share my screen though. That's exciting. Maybe I can do that. Yeah, I can share my screen. Let's see if this works. Can you see my screen? Can't tell if it's working. Can you still just see me, or is it my screen too? Let me know. Okay, anyway, getting back to the topic at hand. All right, so being a perfectionist, just you. Okay, cool. I will have to test that out later then. Being a perfectionist is kind of the whole cornerstone of how I teach, because I find that a lot of people that are drawn to me as my students are also perfectionists. So we go through a lot of these same issues that I went through when I was first starting as a singer. Like, I'm not good enough. There's nothing that I can try that will work. I've been trying everything. I'm fighting so hard to make my voice sound the way I want it to sound. Let me know if that sounds like you. Give me a 1 in the chat if that sounds like you. So these people are all or nothing. It's like, if I can't be Whitney Houston, then I'm not going to sing. But maybe that's a little exaggeration. But it's that same kind of idea. Like, there's no feeling of acceptance. There's very little ease, not a whole lot of growth happening, because you want to be perfect already. And my favorite thing that I've heard about perfectionism recently is it's not the trying to be perfect, it's the getting down on yourself for not being able to be perfect. And there's a big difference in those two, because it's kind of, both of them have the idea of it's possible to be perfect, but it depends on what you do to yourself, right? And this is exactly what I want to talk about, because perfectionists, especially as singers, it comes through as tightness, because you're trying so hard. This is like, if you know anything about psychology, the whole fight or flight response. I know there's other ones that they've come up with too. So there's fighting, which is like trying to battle whatever's going on. Flight, you just run the other way. And then there's also fawning, which is like you're giving into whatever the other person wants. So like telling them they're right. Of course, the problem is me, it's not you, of course, all that. And then the other one is freeze. And that's where you just kind of like don't do anything. You curl up in a little ball and you can't move or react in any way. So perfectionists are often the fighters, but they can also be freezers at the same time. So we have fighting. I don't know why I'm writing on this whiteboard, because it's backwards. But anyway, I'm doing it anyway. So fighting and freezing is a thing that is it happens a lot for perfectionists. And when you fight and freeze, when you're singing, your whole instrument tends to tighten up. And this is where we get a lot of straining. Yeah, exactly, Tom. People can hear it when you're straining, and they can also hear it when you're not straining, and that's what we're looking for. So it's really important to notice when you're having these thoughts of like, man, that just sounded terrible, I don't like it, I'm never going to like how my voice sounds, nothing I try is going to work. And so you're always squeezing, you're always trying hard to fix it, and you're never just letting your voice be what it is. And what's literally happening is you're closing off your space, right? So the space, this beautiful instrument, the golden tube that I was talking about in our last workshop, breathing, which is really important for space as well. I'm glad we did that first. If you haven't watched it and you're here, go back and watch that one, because that's the foundation for all this space talk that we're talking about. You have to have the lungs, the space in the lungs, and the bottom of the lungs, space in your belly to breathe. And when you are having all these thoughts, you may be tightening up in your lungs as well. And so it's just constricting all the space that you need in order to really let your voice be what you would like it to sound like and feel like, which is easy and open and getting out of your own way, right? So we have the perfectionist, and usually that translates to when you're singing tight jaw, tight throat, tight tongue, tight abs, all of these things that need to be released in order to find your sound. The next one is apathetic. And a lot of these people kind of disguise themselves as people who don't care, like who don't want to be singers. Like that's what they tell people. They're like, yeah, I don't want to be a good singer. I just want to not suck, or I just want to not hurt people's eardrums. I hear that one so much. That like people think they're hurting their eardrum, the other people's eardrums or something by singing off key, which is not really true. It's just hurting people's learned sensibility, which is also that they're putting on themselves as well. Used to freeze finally. Oh, you can just blow through mistakes. That's wonderful. I love to hear that, Tom. That's so good. Yeah, if you're here, let me know what of this is resonating and what you feel like is you at this moment. So apathetic, resigned kind of singers, they come in and they're like, yeah, I would just like to be a better singer. I don't need to, even go to karaoke or sing in front of anybody ever. I don't want to do that. I just want to not suck. And so they just think, well, I can't do what I can't do. I can't be Whitney Houston, but it's okay. So it's kind of like related to the perfectionist, but they're just like, they've given up because they've accepted the fact that they can't do it, what they want to do, So instead of trying really hard and nothing works, they just don't try. And they have already resigned themselves to the fact that it's not going to work, so they don't try anything. And so when you have this, it's like you have the ease, but you don't have the foundation underneath it. Like you don't even have the belly breath. You don't have the airflow that you need because there's no trying happening. There's no growing in that respect. So it's kind of from the opposite direction of the perfectionist. And so you have the apathetic singer who, instead of fight, it's usually kind of a fawn situation or just flight in general. It's mostly flight, I think, because a lot of them don't even show up here for voice lessons, So you have perfectionist, fight, freeze. Everything just shows up as tight. Sorry, my handwriting's terrible. You have apathetic, and you have fawn and flight as their response. Let me know. Put a 2 in the chat if that feels like you. If you just are a person that's just like, nope, not going to do it. Because I know it's not going to work out. This often comes up in the body as very little breath support or control over anything. And a lot of times when they try and get out of their regular speaking range, there's no sound whatsoever because they're not putting the airflow behind it because they've already given up and they know they can't reach those high notes. So they're not even putting any effort or oomph into those high notes. So it's equally as frustrating, but from different parts of the mind spectrum, So that usually comes up as just too much relaxation, no breath support. I really need to get like a program where I can write on the screen or something. That would be cool. Last one is the perpetual student, or I call it the clueless, not in the fact that you don't have a clue, but like just the fact that you're always pretending like you don't have a clue. That's kind of thing. Like, I don't know what to do. Show me what to do. Just tell me what to do, Sarah. I hear that one a lot too. So they come in and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I know nothing. Tell me what to do. But really what I'm trying to do is get you to be the expert on your voice, right? So I'm going to ask you questions. Excuse me. And I'm going to guide you in a certain direction. But if you keep saying, I don't know what to do, then there's also no growth in that respect as well, because you're just relying on me to tell you what to do and to fix your voice for you. And that's not helpful for you in the long run, because it's just like having a teacher who like told you the answers to all your math problems. You never learned how to do all the math problems. You never learned how to be an autonomous singer, autonomous person. Hey, Mary Beth, how you doing? Welcome. And Tara's here too. Welcome, welcome. So we're talking about the 3 types of singers. So number 1 is perfectionist and all or nothing. If that's you, that's okay. You're all good. Time doesn't mean anything. It's fine. You can always watch those first couple minutes later, but I'm going to recap real quick for you. So the first type of singer, let me know if this resonates with you. Put a 1 in the chat. Is perfectionist, all or nothing. It's not good enough and nothing I try works. That's what they say. There's no ease. There's just fighting and freezing and tightness. It usually ends up as tightness, mouth, jaw, throat, abs, tongue, all the things. Number 2, put a 2 in the chat if this feels like you, is apathetic or resigned. Somebody that just says, I don't care. I know I'm not going to be able to do it, so I'm not even going to try. I can't do it, but it's okay. It's fine. And the it's okay part is usually a lie. It's okay. I don't want to. I don't want to sing in front of anybody ever. It's too much ease. So what that manifests as is no breath support, no control, no sound on high notes. They already know they can't do it, so they just give it up. Number 3, which we're on right now, is the perpetual student, the clueless person. They just tell me, I don't know what to do, fix me, tell me what to do, give me all the answers. There's no idea of what's possible. They just think that what they were given as a child or what they have now is everything that's possible. And they rely completely on the coach or the person that they are asking them to help them and give them all their power. So they don't trust their own abilities and desires and instincts. So this person is always just like taking classes and taking lessons and not really integrating the things and growing as a person, as a singer. There's a couple 1s in the chat. I'm guessing we have a lot of perfectionists here. Let me know 1, 2, or 3 which one feels like you if you haven't answered. I think it's really important to know these things about yourself because, I mean, for all parts of life, not just singing, it's really important to know what your tendency is, what your reflex is. Like if your tendency is to fawn, which means like you're just going with what the other person says, then you could be a professional student and you could finally see a pattern in yourself that's like, oh, I've been just relying on my teachers my entire life and I have never taken the responsibility to do the thing instead of just learning about how to do the thing. I have been partly that as well. And sometimes you're a little bit of all 3 of these at different times in your life, and that's okay too. But usually you have one trait that comes out, especially in your singing. So what I usually see, because like I said, I attract a lot of perfectionist people because I am a perfectionist as well. It comes out as trying too hard, overdoing, over singing, just fighting to the end. And then when it doesn't work, you're just frustrated and you're like, okay, trying something else, or you just give up because you tried everything already. It's the strain that really gets to you. And so in all of these situations, it manifests inside of your instrument in different ways, and it affects your space in different ways. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So when you're a perfectionist and you're fighting all the time, you just have to get that high note. And I don't know if I'm going to make it, so I'm going to try as hard as I can, and I'm going to tighten everything up in my body, and I'm going to be stiff because if I loosen up, then I could fail, and God knows what'll come out of my mouth. Let me know. Give me an emoji in the chat if that feels accurate for how you approach big things, high notes, runs, things that you think are too hard for you. And so when we do that, we're literally changing the shape of our space. And I would like to point out that our space inside of our body doesn't usually change in volume. So a lot of the times it's really difficult to describe how all of this works, except for I like to think of it as the golden tube. And when you have this tube on the inside of your body, which is the part that's all of the systems of your body. But right now, I'm mostly talking about the pharynx, which is the part right above your larynx, which is where your vocal folds lie. It's this tube that lies above that, which is where the actual resonation happens, where the sound is resonating. So the vibration is happening in here, the resonation is here, and this is why we can hear sound. because of the space above your actual vibrating vocal folds. So when you're a perfectionist and you're thinking, oh, I'm not good enough to hit that high note, you tighten everything up in your body. These muscles tighten up too. And this goes from here to here. And you go, ah! Right? When we try and hit that high note and we go, ah! Oh no, a note's not coming out. I must not be a good enough singer. I must have to try harder. This is the cycle, right? Let me know if this feels like an accurate description of how you approach things. I see it all the time. I tell you, oh, I must not be good enough. I must not have that note in my range. Not true. Usually, there are some people that just never use all of their range, and so it's not really possible. But you know, they have these moments where they hear that really tiny sound come out, or they try and hit a note and it doesn't quite make it. So, you know, you're going up to this note and you go, ah, and you're not quite hitting it and you don't know why. It sounds off. So the pitch turns away from the accurate center of the pitch because something is not allowing those vocal folds to do their job normally. They're being pulled in one direction or the other. They're being pulled too tight slightly or too loose tight slightly. So it doesn't always work the same way for everybody. Some people always have a tendency to be sharp. Don't know which way to go. I guess I'm thinking of a tuner. This way for you guys is sharp. Or some people, they, for some reason, when they're trying really hard, their notes always go flat because they're tightening up in a certain way, in different ways that let the note be off pitch of what it should be. Even if you have a great ear, which most people have pretty good ears and they don't even realize it and they don't accept it. But what you're doing is you're getting in the way of this pathway between what your ear knows and your mind knows should be coming out, this note. You can hear that in your ear. You know that it's supposed to sound like that. You've heard it a million times. But for some reason, what's coming out is not making it to that. And so you get frustrated and you tighten up even more. It's this vicious cycle. And it really is all about what's happening in here. So creating space starts with knowing your tendencies, which is why I started with those three singer types. So it's really important to know what you're used to doing, what your normal reaction is to when a undesirable sound comes out. I don't like to use the word good and bad because I'm trying to do away with all binaries in general, because in singing there's no good or bad. It's just a concept that somebody in power hundreds of years ago decided was a thing. And so we're trying to deconstruct all that now. So the only thing that is bad is something that's hurting your voice, that's painful or actually dangerous for you. So what we want to think about instead is, what's my intention? What's the tone and sound that I'm going for? And am I reaching that goal? Am I getting to what I intended? And so that's the new good. Did I do what I intended? And a lot of times we are so bogged down by these rules of what's good and bad that's where this whole cycle comes from. Is like, oh, I sang this note and it sounded singing mostly on pitch, but the tone is weird, right? It's a bright kind of a little scratchy, raspy tone, which some people might say is bad. It's not a good sound. But some people might think that's exactly what I want for this song, right? It depends on what genre you're singing, what era of music you're singing, depends on how you want it to feel emotionally. Like there's all kinds of like EDM music that uses all kinds of weird vocal patterns because that's what the emotion they're going for. The operatic world is not the default anymore. We don't all have to be singing, ah. That's not good. That's not the only good, right? It's a good. If that person intended to have that operatic sound and they made it, great. If you did not intend to have that sound and you made what sound you were intending to have, great. That's good. So I want you to start deconstructing these ideas in your mind. See what comes up when you think of how I want my voice to sound. And it should be how you want it to sound instead of how you think it should sound. So just go with me for a second and take a moment and think about a time recently when you were singing, something came out differently than you thought. What were the thoughts that started going through your head? Type them in the chat for me, if you're okay with sharing. Maybe you heard yourself sing a note and it was like, oh God, that was terrible. I was so sharp. I don't know what I was doing. Ugh, just gross. I want to hear all that inner commentary, see what happened. So I want to start to see what was actually happening instead. So a lot of times we hear this note that doesn't sound great, or it sounds tight, or makes the pitch go weird, but we don't go back and experiment and try and find another sound. We just automatically say, I can't sing that note. Have you ever heard that out of your own mouth before? Nope, can't sing that. Nope, never going to try that again. I just can't sing that high. Whereas we don't try and play with the space, which we're about to do in a second, in order to find different ways of approaching that note. Tara says, I get frustrated that my voice doesn't sound like how I want it to. Also, everything that you just said. Perfect. I'm so glad I'm right on the money. Some vowels feel harsh, sound feel harsh, and that's not what I want. Yeah. So I think all of these, they have a reason, but a lot of times we don't stop and experiment to find the reason why they sound this way instead of this way, right? Not good or bad. They don't sound bad. We're not trying to fix them. We're just trying to make sure we're singing in a healthy, easy way. So it's not injure ourselves, number one. That's good. That's actual good. And then we want to discover how we can get on track to what we do want. And that takes a lot of playing around. And that's what we're about to do. So I'm going to stop trying to write words on this board because you can't see it. And every time I do this, I remember, oh yeah, it's backwards, Sarah. So I'm gonna draw instead because I think that will help as well. So I like to think of the voice as this 3D kind of box around my head. And we're going to talk about the inner shapes in a minute as well. But I want to talk about this first because I think it's really important to start thinking about your voice as how you feel it instead of just how it sounds. Because a lot of people come in and they're like, I just want my voice to sound better. And then we start discovering that really how we sound better is feeling better. And if you learn nothing else from me ever, write that down. In order to sound better, you have to feel better when you're singing. So that should be your new goal, is to have everything feel better, easier, freer when you're singing. So hopefully this is not going to turn out terribly. Could be worse. So this is how I think of space as a singer. Scoot you back a little bit. So this is the 3D tone palette as I see it. So this is your head. That's you. Sorry, you're not very pretty. This is this box, a 3D box around your head. And these are kind of the spectrums. So this would be like a forward to back spectrum. And this would be like your pitch spectrum. So like low notes to high notes. And these are the first couple ways I want you to start thinking about your voice. How can I play with my voice going lower? And when does it feel that low and too low? Where's too low for my voice? I want you to start playing with your range a lot more. because that will change your space in different ways than you thought. And you can do this with just speaking. You don't have to go fully into singing mode too. You can go into speaking and play with low voice, low voice, low voice, different low voice, and then go all the way up to high voice and play it with your high voice. And feel where it gets tight and see if you can make it a little looser. See if you can create space up in your high voice. And you can do this with me. I know it feels really ridiculous. But this is the key, is playing around in this box. This is your new sandbox, BT dubs. I want you to start playing around in this sandbox. I know, I'm a ridiculous person, but it's fun. It's fun to be ridiculous. So I want you to start playing with these spectrums as well, the forward and back spectrum. How I think of it is back is kind of like breathy, kind of dark feeling, especially when you're low. Can you do that? And then you can start moving it forward until you get to this point of very bright, very forward, kind of narrow sound. Kind of feels almost nasally. Because that's literally what we're doing. We're moving how you're feeling everything in your voice forward and back on the spectrum. So now what I want you to do is go in one breath from this back space to the front space. Okay, ready? Pick a note in them somewhere in the middle, maybe. Let's do like here. Ready? Tell me in the chat how that felt. You can keep playing with it. You can go up a little higher, see how it feels up here. Disney princess, all the way a little bit forward, a little more aggressive. Some princess with sass. Kind of fun to practice that, to play with it, yeah? Let me know in the chat how it feels for you to do that. So it's really important to know your range. At least know what it feels like. You don't have to know your range on a piano. Just know where you feel like the bottom of your voice is and where you feel like the top of your voice is. And to know where it feels like in your back breathy range. And to know where in the middle and then in front in a very nasal forward bright way. So it's important to start feeling these differences. How does this 3D tone palette world feel for you? I know it feels weird to like be doing all these voices, but really, this is the most important part. Like if you are a perfectionist and you're saying, oh, nothing I ever try is good enough, I'm guessing you haven't played around enough. I'm guessing you haven't been silly enough. You've just been very serious about it and tried to be in singing mode and trying to hit those notes in a very pretty way, very stiff way. But I think it can only help to be in this mode of playground sandbox mode with your voice, because then you start to notice all the things that are possible and you start to move your mouth in different ways, which we're going to talk about in 2 seconds. It feels like you have room to grow, if that makes sense. Oh, totally, Tara. Yeah. Everybody has room to grow. Professional singers have room to grow. So it's just a matter of knowing where you are, accepting where you are, not from a place of resignment, right? Resignation, that's the word. Not from a place of resignation, but from a place of, okay, I know where I am. I accept where I am because I have room to grow, like you're just saying. And I know exactly what I need to work on in order to get to this new place with my voice. So instead of allowing those tendencies to come back over and over again, you start to give yourself evidence of like, oh, I was just playing around the other day and I found this sound. I know I can find it again, instead of being like, oh, it's still not good enough. You start to treat it with a little more grace and you start to think, oh, okay, I can just be silly and not put so much pressure on my voice all the time. You know, this one's really hard for perfectionists, is to be silly and to take the pressure off, take the gas pedal off. The ah sound goes harsh in the front, and when I pull it back, it softens the sound. Exactly, Tom. That's a very good observation, because this is the basics of how you start to emote as a singer, right? Getting in intimate relationship with your voice and what emotions that brings up is how you become a more potent singer. So if there's a moment in a song where you're like, oh, I want to be very tender, that's how you know you to pull it back on the spectrum and go, ha, instead of ha. Very different feeling. Very different. Good. I'm so glad you've been trying to practice more silly. That's awesome. It really is the foundation to everything. I mean, I tell people to let it be ugly all the time, but really what I mean is let it be silly. Let it be loose, because stiff never works. And if you're allowing yourself to be silly and loose and messy and ugly, you don't have that stiffness. And if you're a perfectionist like me, which sounds like all of you are, that's what we're trying to counterbalance. The stiffness, the tightness, the efforting, the over singing, all that. Okay, so moving on to the next part of your space. We have the larynx right here. When I'm 64, that's a great song to practice all these on because you can be really silly. Do all kinds of voices with that. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so you have your larynx right here. And you have the pharynx, which is the space above it. And then you have your mouth, which is the extension of your pharynx. It's also a resonating chamber for your voice. And have you ever sat and played with just your mouth shape? If you've done accents at all, if you played with accents, you really have a little better sense of what shape can do for your voice. But if you just take a moment and like just move your mouth in lots of different ways. Just think about how many different possible shape combinations there are in just your mouth alone. Thousands upon thousands. It's crazy. And we never use most of them when we're speaking in one language. So if you think about it, the thing I usually have people do is to try and speak in a more British accent. And if you've never done that, it can be very weird and scary. But sometimes it can be very fun just to like go turn on the Great British Baking Show and just try and speak like them, just imitate. Hello, how are you today? And it really makes you feel the difference of how your mouth shape has to change based on what you're used to. So if you're an American English speaker, a lot of languages feel like you're opening your mouth too much because we speak so flat and stuck and stiff. We hardly move our mouth at all when we're speaking. Like if you look at my mouth right now, I'm hardly moving anything except my lips, and you can still understand me because you're used to listening to American English. But somebody from another country might be like, what are you saying? All of your words are put together and I can't distinguish sounds. English is the most pain in the butt language to learn. So I've heard. It's also a really big pain in the butt to sing with because we speak so flat and we have a hard time opening anything. And we feel like it's too much openness, too much vulnerability, just scary. You feel like a fly is going to fly in your mouth or something. So as American English speakers, we have to really play around and be willing to feel a little silly with our mouth shape as we're learning how to change your tone in different parts of your range. So for example, this is really, really helpful, especially if you're trying to extend your range on the top and try and reach higher notes. So like I was doing before, when you're trying to reach those high notes, it can get very flat. It gets a very tiny sound because you're flat. Your larynx is like this, right? So the great thing about the mouth and the pharynx is that they are so related. When you open your mouth, a lot of the times your pharynx will also open up. Sometimes you can get really good at isolating them, but most of the time when you open your mouth and you kind of find that back space between your back teeth, everything else just kind of falls into this open space too. It's just a relaxation of all these muscles that are working together. Same thing with your soft palate and your tongue. I don't know how much you've played with your soft palate, but it's the space. There's like a hard palate, and then there's this. I don't know if this is going to be good to show you. in your mouth. This is a hard palate. If you put your tongue in the top of your mouth, you can feel the hard part. And then back behind it is your soft palate, the soft part that lifts up when you yawn. So you can do a yawn. You feel that stretch on the top of your mouth? That's your soft palate. And your tongue will move up with it. So when you yawn, your tongue tightens up. You feel that? So when you're moving your tongue back, a lot of times your soft palate will go with it. So again, you can learn how to isolate those, which we do later on as we're working towards higher levels of this idea. But to start, I always just have people open their mouth because that's the thing that creates that space in the pharynx, if that's helpful. Let me know if this is making sense. Put a 1 in the chat if you're trying all this stuff and you're like, okay, I can feel that. I can feel what you're talking about. Perfect. So let's just try speaking a British sentence. So the one that's coming to mind is the one from My Fair Lady. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. So like if you're an American English speaker, try that in your flat American English. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. Just feel what's happening in your mouth and your throat. Then we're going to go British. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. So just opening your mouth more, opening your back teeth more. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. I can feel it more on the falls because it's not falls anymore. It's falls on. So you get taller vowels on the plain. And then we go full Eliza Doolittle and go like, I think it's called Cockney accent. So you go, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. And that's just open mouth central. Are you feeling stupid yet? Put an emoji in the chat if you feel stupid. It's fun. It's fun to play around. Allow yourself to be a little silly if you can. So this is the idea that we're going for. So it's kind of just allowing yourself to feel different ways of creating sound so that when you are singing a song and your perfectionist self comes back in and goes, nope, you're not going to be able to hit that note. You practice this so that you can remind yourself to let this space open up and so that you can actually have more resonating space to create the tone you're looking for. So when we go back to singing, we can find this new ah vowel. So instead of ah, that gets very tight at the top, we can find tall ah with your tongue relaxed, back teeth separated. So you're finding front space in your mouth and back space. The back space is the most important one. So take a nice belly breath like we learned last time, and we'll go these 4 notes up. Ready? And all of a sudden that same note becomes a whole new world, right? Instead of slightly off pitch, really hard to determine what's going on. It just feels tight and off. Open that space and go, and it might feel a little tightness still if you never go that high, and that's totally okay. And we're going to work on more stuff later. But just this finding this space in your mouth is going to open up different doors for you and your voice. So put an emoji in the chat if you just found a different space that you didn't know existed. So you can practice this even when you're speaking. So you can use all of our vowels, and we can say, instead of ni, ne, na, no, nu, we can say a little taller and go ni, ne, na, no, nu. And just feel the space between your teeth. Feel the slight lift of your soft palate. Ni, ne, na, no, nu. And as you start to play with this backspace, I want you to start to play with your volume as well and your projection, because that's when it really starts to be amplified. So instead of just talking to somebody right here, Ni ne na no nu, or ni ne na no nu, you can start to talk to somebody in the next room. So you're taking a bigger belly breath, because remember, your body knows how to do that. When you're just imagining you're talking to somebody further away, that's a thing that's ingrained in you. So let's do that. Ready? Ni ne na no nu. Like you're telling them like it is. Hey, guess what? I have something to tell you. Ni ne na no nu. How's that feel? Do you feel like you have more space? Do you feel like you have more room to move around? Do you feel like you have an easier time with that? If you try to do that with your mouth as closed as you would before, it would be ni ne na no nu. There's so much trying and tightness in here. Hey, as opposed to hey. You're just releasing something. And it comes from that space, from finding a new shape with your mouth. New space. Not more space. Remember, just different shape space. And we have the ability to manipulate that in thousands of different ways. And so this is just the beginning of this conversation. And remember, we started with finding out what singer type we are. So if you're a perfectionist, it comes out in different ways. It comes out a lot as tightness. And you'll notice when you start to sing louder or higher, that tightness will really start to be obvious. And so I want you to play with finding the space and releasing and playing around with different voices in different parts of your range. If you're an apathetic singer, I want you to play first of all with your breath, your belly breath, because that's going to help everything. You have to have the breath foundation. So go back and watch the last workshop if that's you. And once you have that belly breath, then you can start to play with this space as well and allow yourself to get out of your own way and allow yourself to start to find different sounds that you didn't know existed and just trust the experiment. That's usually a good place to come at it from if you're a perfectionist or apathetic, because in either one, there's so much pressure to do things the right way. You know, if I can't do it the right way, I got to try something else and keep fighting. Or if I can't do it the right way, I'm not even going to try. But if you just come from this place of experimenting through this 3D tone palette idea, through different mouth shapes, different fun accents, different character voices, then it starts to become less of a thing that you have to get right and more of a thing that you can just try and do and allow. The allowing is the key. Remember what I said before, the thing that I would love for you to remember. I don't want you to think about sounding good. I want you to think about feeling good. Be playful. Exactly. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's always a thing. So as much as you can, I would love for you to play around this week with your belly breath that we learned from last time, and also this space in here, space in your lungs, space outside of your head. Where does this note feel like it's going to? Does it feel like it's kind of somewhat forward, kind of here in my range? Or does it feel like it's down here and it's back in my range? There's infinite possibilities in here too. So I want you just to think about that. The last little bit of space that I always like to talk about is creating space in your life. And this is very important because as aspiring singers, we don't think of ourselves as singers yet. And that makes a big difference. So we start to cancel things, cancel lessons. I'm not bitter, I promise. We start to not practice. So we start to not give ourselves the space in our calendar, not give ourselves the literal physical space to play with your voice, to have this practice time, this sandbox time, which is so, so important. And as you start becoming more dedicated to your vocal goals, the thing I want you to remember is how to create space in your life. So if you can carve out 15 minutes, instead of listening to that podcast in your car on the way home, practice, play around with your voice, play around with your voices. Just do so many random things. Let some weird sounds out of your mouth, right? And it's all about giving yourself that space. 15 minutes is enough. 5 minutes is enough. It's just about giving yourself that space, because when we don't give ourselves that space, then you are sabotaging your whole effort. And no wonder you're not feeling any better because you're not putting in the fuel, which is the time and space to really grow. And so when you're dedicated to this journey, which you are if you're here, you're dedicated to your vocal growth, to ease and freedom in your voice, it has to be a thing that you are creating your reality as a singer before you even feel like a singer, because that's the only way to do it, right? If you want to make more money, you have to visualize what it would be like to make that money. If you want to run a marathon, you have to visualize what it would feel like to be a runner and to make those changes. And you have to run every day, right? Not every day necessarily, but you have to practice. You have to build up to that. Same thing here. It's not just a talent that people are born with or not. I don't know if that's a big controversial topic for you, but it's true. Singers are not born. They are trained, just like athletes. So if you are wanting this, you have to create space for your training. You have to create space for your play. You have to create space for just figuring stuff out. You have to just create space. And a lot of times it becomes space literally in your life, but it starts in your mind. And so as we start to change how our mind views things, it changes what we do, changes our actions. So if you start to think of yourself as a singer instead of just like, oh, maybe someday I'll be better at singing. If you think I am a singer, what do singers do? They take time to practice. They take time to play. They take time to make a change in their life. You know, singers have time for singing. Runners have time for running. Employees have time for working. It's all the same idea. So I want you to think about how you can create more space in your life for your voice. And I know some of you are very good at that. But some people needs a reminder. And I know that because I needed a reminder. I always need a reminder. If I want to be a singer, and I do, I need to be a singer first by singing, creating that space to actually sing and do the thing that I want to do. Because you can already. You don't have to be a perfect singer. You don't have to be Ariana Grande to sing, to practice, right? That's what practice is all about. That's what warm-ups are all about. It's about practicing and getting to where we want to be instead of getting down on ourselves because we're not already there. I feel like somebody here needs to hear that. So just wanted to say all that about space. I think it's really important for not only your accuracy, but your ease. And of course, those come hand in hand, right? Your ease creates accuracy. We want to get out of the way so these little guys in here can do their thing and be besties. Hopefully this is helpful. Let me know if you have questions. Any questions in the chat right now? I have something really exciting to share. So give me your questions right now before we get to that. Let me know if anything didn't make sense. Let me know if you want me to do another one on this and go deeper, because I could talk for many hours about all of this stuff, which is why I do these. Okay, so, oh, Tom's typing. I'm gonna give you a second. While I write down what I'm about to talk about. Put some in the chat while we're waiting. Just fooling around with the space just now, I finally was able to isolate soft palate muscles. Too cool. That's exciting. I love that, Tom. That's really, really wonderful. I think it's really exciting when you start to learn different ways of using your body. Isn't that cool? After many decades. Like, who would have thunk that we could learn to use our bodies in different ways than we already did? I thought I did that already. Okay, just kidding. Never mind. Okay, so I'm so happy for you, Tom. That's amazing. So the thing I want to talk about is this group is wonderful, and I wanted to offer people a chance to go a little deeper. And these are for people who don't necessarily have the wherewithal to do private lessons with me or the Vocal Magic full-on like 5-month program that I offer, which if you're interested is taking people for the wait list right now. But this new membership that I'm doing is kind of like the step up from this group. It's a big step up. There's going to be lots of fun things happening. It's called the Enchanted Voice membership. And so if you feel like you want to enchant your voice, then this is for you. And I have a feeling that a bunch of people in here are really going to go for that, because if you're here, that means you're dedicated. And so if you're dedicated, the next step is to find the space in your life, like we were talking about. So with this membership, it's going to be these conversations, but deeper. I'm going to go live a couple times a month, and we're going to have these same conversations, but then we're going to also have time for you to sing with me. And we're going to do warm-ups together. We're going to do exercises, and you're also going to have time for hot seat coaching. So you can come on, sing a little snippet of your song that you're working on, and we'll dive into these little minute details together. And I will get to hear your voice and say, okay, so this is what you're doing really well. Let's work on this part. I'll ask all the right questions. We will talk about what you need as a singer, what your goals are, and how to get you to those goals. And so it's a little more intimate of a container for us to get to know each other better. It's not just me talking at you like this is. We're going to do Zoom calls, and it's going to be the same conversations, but we're going to get really deep because we can, and because we can talk about what we're struggling with and say, oh, okay, how do we reframe that? And how do we look at this in a different way? And I'll give you exercises to do and all kinds of fun stuff. I'm going to be sending videos in there every week that are exclusive to the membership group. We get to have fun events, like we'll do challenges and stuff, like everyday practice challenges, everyday sharing your voice challenges. I love to do stuff like that because that's what really elevates your voice. And so this membership is going to start on July 15th. So if you're watching back the replay and this sounds like something you're interested in, just DM me on here on the Mighty Networks group, and I will tell you more about it. But I posted a link in here at the chat, and if you can see it, hopefully it works. I'm opening the wait list today for you because you're here and you're wonderful. And if you're here, then you are dedicated enough to be in this membership. And so it's not crazy a lot of time. We're going to do 2 live hot seat calls a month, and then everything else is going to be in the group. So if you want to post your voice, it'll be a safe, smaller group to do that. If you want to post a video of you singing and get feedback that way too, that will be the place to do it. It will be people that you know and love are on Zoom calls all the time with you. So it's kind of like a light version of the Vocal Magic program, but our own special flair. So I call it the Enchanted Voice program because it's really important to have this extra level of accountability for the growth that you're looking for. So like you can hang out on here and keep lurking, totally fine with me. This is what this group is here for, and just watch all the videos and practice on your own. However, the voice is such a personal instrument that it helps so much to have somebody listen to you. Like I can't tell you the growth I had when I started taking vocal lessons. Like I was an okay singer before, but the first month I started taking classical voice lessons from my singing coach, my whole voice opened up. I found spaces in my voice that I never knew would ever exist. So just putting that out there, having other people is the other big catalyst. Having other people that are on the same path as you, working through the same struggles as you, it just makes everything feel so much easier. It makes you feel less alone. It makes you feel just at home. You know, if you come to class and you're like, God, I can't get this belty part for the life of me. Can you help me? And then somebody else chimes in and goes, I'm dealing with the same thing. Thank you so much for asking that question. Let's try it together. Let's be practice buddies or something. The growth that I have seen in my Vocal Magic program with these little cohorts of people sharing their voice, all of whom, by the way, were terrified to share their voice with anybody else at the beginning. The growth that they have shown is just freaking mind-blowing. So this is another way of doing that. It will, of course, be ideally a bigger group than 4 people eventually. But it's a nice lower commitment version of people who want to work with me who don't have the time or the financial capability to do private lessons or the big program with me. So this is for you. If you're here listening to this and you're like getting a little ping in your chest, let me know. Click on the link, join the waitlist, DM me. You can do all of that and we can chat about all the things. This first cohort, this first round that I'm opening right now, it's going to be $47 a month. $47 a month. That's like a fifth or less of what private voice coaching is going to be. Actually, it's like an eighth of what private voice coaching is with me. So just keep this in mind. DM me if you're interested, and or if you're interested in all the other things I'm doing, the Vocal Magic Program waitlist as well. We can talk about that. Yeah, it's going to be a super great deal to have access to me for very little. So I'm really excited. Tell your friends, invite them. I'm doing one more workshop on July 8th, I believe, and then the doors will be opening July 8th through the 12th, and then we're going to start on July 15th. Okay, that's all I had to say. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your wins and struggles and amazing things and your silly voices. If you feel like posting in the group what type of singer you are, I think everybody else would love to hear that as well. And I'll make a whole big post about that eventually in the next couple of days as well, because I think it's really important for people to know. All right, I love you, and I will see you and talk to you soon.